How you doing, people? We are live, baby, live. Welcome to the Big Vito brand. I am here with my wife, Noel Harlow, and we have a special guest, one of my longtime buddies, a man who is a Hall of Famer in the WWE, a legend in WCW, and one of my close buddies for over 20 years, Diamond Dallas Page, DDP of the famous Diamond Cutter. Dallas, how are you doing today?
Baby, I am just like my new book that's coming out in January called Positively Unstoppable. Actually, Positively Unstoppable, The Art of Owning It. That's coming out January 15th. And I just got done doing an interview. I was talking about it right now. It's not going to be for sale till January. We're just getting people ready to start out 2019 with a bang.
That's the only way we got to do things, with a bang. Now, you're not going to come through the computer and bang me out, are you?
No, dude, no, I'm done. Done with that.
Slide in and maybe hit it for it now? Oh, okay.
All right, Dallas. I got a bunch of good stuff to talk to you about. I got a lot of good things. I've always been a big fan of your work outside of wrestling because you help people and you do a lot of tremendous good in the community. So
thank you.
Let's talk about why you started DDP Yoga, because that was always a good question for me. And I said, you know, the guy did DDP Yoga and he's helped probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, inspired positivity like your book. Tell us a little bit of why you did DDP Yoga.
Well, it was more out of necessity than anything. You have to understand, for people who don't know, I didn't start wrestling until I was 35 years old. My career didn't take off till I was 40, which was in 1996. 1990, you know, the Monday Night Wars, as we know, were jamming back then. I was working at a feverish pitch. 1997, 98, I was on top of the world. I just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal. I mean, I was living the dream on a whole different level. And then, bang, man, I blew my back out. Kevin Nash had actually powerbombed me in a tag match with me and Canyon, him and Scott against me and Chris. And when I took that power bomb, when I hit, man, I felt like someone shot me in the back. And what had happened is, you know, God has given us this incredible vertebrae that we have, you know, which is really our spine is our lifeline. It determines how you feel as you put on the years. And in between that amazing vertebrae are discs. You know, they're like shock absorbers, so we can take all that punishment. And when I say I ruptured my L4 and L5, that would be in between your vertebrae to disc. It would be like taking a jelly donut and squishing it. And now they're bone on bone. And I had 3 different spine specialists tell me, and right in the beginning in 1999, that my career was over, and that and like the contract I'd signed, the way my lawyer, you know, worded it was that even if I get hurt and I'm out, I still get paid half the money. But I just worked on top. In 97, 98, and 13 had 24 either main events or semi-main events. I made like journeyman money. I did not make the money. Like if I was in WWE over that time, I may have made $3 or $5 million a year being in that spot at that time, drawing those numbers on pay-per-view and those houses. I probably would have made ridiculous money, but it didn't. I made like bottom of the middle card money, and now I'm getting paid finally, and now they're telling me, up, you're done. Well, the money was part of it. The other part of it, as you know, living the dream, man. You want to live it as long as you can. So at that point, the guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga would do anything. I would do whatever it took. And yoga got brought into my life. My ex-wife, you know, then my wife at the time, Kimberly, introduced me to it. And I'm like, I ain't doing yoga. But it became like a contest for her to get me to try to do it. And at some point I gave in. And I was so grateful that I did. And within 3 weeks, I started to feel a significant difference. Now, the yoga positions that I was doing with the movements were good, but it wasn't giving me everything. So I started adding the rehabilitation stuff. Now I've rehabbed both shoulder surgeries, both knee surgeries. So I know a lot about rehab. And somehow instinctively, I guess it's from starting so much older and most of the guys start, I was always trying to figure out ways to hold back the hands of time, whether it was icing my body. You know, you've seen me ice on my shoulders, ice on my knees, ice on my back. You know, deep muscle massage therapy, chiropractic, applied kinesiology, organic eating. I was eating organically before anybody. People even knew what organic was. You know, I always tell people, you know, or what your great grandparents used to call food, because everything was organic. So I was doing whatever it took to hold back the hands of time. So once I incorporated the yoga positions with the rehabilitation techniques, like, wow, that works pretty good. Then throwing in the old school calisthenics. And in the beginning, I had to do everything with a slow burn movement. In other words, if I was in a push-up position, I wasn't just doing push-ups. I would lower 3, 2, 1, and then I'd hold 3 inches off the ground for 3. Then I would come up 3, 2, 1. Then I'd lower for 3, hold for 3. Then I'd go into cobra to down dog. And what I realized eventually, well, at that time I was doing them on my knees because I had to do it like that because my back couldn't handle it. But eventually I got off my knees. Eventually those 3-second push-ups became 5. The 5 became 10. The 10-second push-ups became sets of 10. And as I was strengthening my body, I started to get on the Stairmaster again and started incorporating the cardio into my conditioning that I was doing with, at that time, what I was calling yoga for normal people. Right. Because, you know, everybody who did yoga to me back then was like Gumby, you know, super lean, super, you know, like crazy yoga shape. And I wasn't. So what I did with the mixture of the yoga positions, the rehabilitation techniques, the old school calisthenics, and those, like, what I call dynamic resistance, the flexing and engaging. And that's what you're doing when you're doing any kind of movement slow. Curls, let's use an example. If you're weightlifting and you're doing a slow burn curl where you're lifting 3, 2, 1, then you hold for 3, then you lower for 3, that weight is going to significantly come down because you're not using any momentum to move the weight. You're using just the muscle, and you're having to flex and engage way more muscles. What I found out when I went on the Stairmaster, I'm wearing a heart monitor to see that I don't train too high in my fat burning zone, meaning at the time I was 42. So I would take 42 less 180. That gives me 138. Now, if you're beat up, you don't want to be running your body at 138 beats per minute. You want to be doing it more like 125, 120, so you're not overtaxing your muscles. If I was in great shape, I might be up to 140, 145, but I don't want to overburn myself out. What I did was I went on the Stairmaster and I did a workout, and I stayed right around 130. Got off that, got on the mat, and about 20 minutes into my workout, I was doing those 10-second push-ups.
Right.
And when I went from cobra to down dog and jumped up and went into touchdown, I looked at my heart monitor that I had on my wrist, and it said I was 133. I'm thinking, how can my heart rate be so high? I'm not doing cardio. But then I realized the whole flexing and engaging thing, when I was just like doing, cable pulls, I could do that with no weight. But the more I flex those muscles, the higher my heart rate went. And when I didn't, the lower my heart rate would come down. the perfect analogy is you're laying in bed. Your heart rate's going to be the lowest ever, right? Sit up. What's going to happen to your heart rate? Going to go up. Stand, walk, jog, run, sprint. It's going to keep going up. That's what I was doing on the mat. And that's something no one has ever done in any workout ever. So what today, DDP Yoga, or as I'm calling it, DDPY, you're going to see over the next 3 years. 3 years from now, no one will even though it'll still be DDP Yoga, barely anybody will call it that. They'll call it DDPY. Why? Because I want people to stop calling it just yoga. I didn't make this for yogis. I made this for me, you, guys, girls that are beat up that want to heal their body and feel young again or unstoppable. So what DDPY ended up being in the big picture, kick-ass cardio, dramatically increase your flexibility, strengthen your core at a whole nother level with minimal joint impact. In less than 3 months, after I've been told by 3 of the top spine specialists in the world, you're done, in less than 3 months, I was back in the ring. At 42, they said my career's over. At 43, I was world champ, the oldest ever crowned in our business. Sergeant Slaughter was 42.
Right.
I became the oldest one ever. And as you can imagine, I'm going to keep doing that. And you know me, Vito, that if I believe in something, I don't care if it's a cup of coffee or a burrito. If I know where the best one is, I'm going to tell people about it. And I started to share this with people. And in the beginning, everybody thought I was crazy. We have a new documentary coming out in 2019, and it's called Relentless. And it's a story from Kevin Nash powerbombing me to today. And how this journey, this DDPY journey that I've been on, Steve Austin was living with me 15 years ago in LA when I started to work towards making it my lifestyle and everything that I do. And I mean like a business. And he's like, kid, what are you thinking? Nobody's going to do this. You're not going to get people who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga, doing your version of yoga. Like he says it right in the documentary. Because that's what he used to say to me. You're crazy. You're wasting your money. I was $548,000 in this company before I took one dime.
I got to tell you, Dallas, that is a great story, and it's something that's a lifelong dream for people to accomplish, a great accomplishment on your part. And, I'm going to tell you this. Kevin Nash, everybody, being 7 feet tall and being as rugged as Kevin Nash, probably was one of the safest workers in our sport and never intended to hurt nobody.
Oh, God, no. It wasn't him. It was never him. It wasn't even the bump. It was being almost 43 and that bump that broke the camel's back.
I hear you. And like people don't know, like, our bodies in the sport of professional wrestling can only take so much. It's like being in a car accident every day of your life.
Right. Numerous car accidents.
And, Dallas, you are a remarkable story because you reprogrammed your body to be something that people can, you're like this era's Jack LaLanne. It just keeps on going. And I would say big, huge compliment, and when you talk about the sport and the old era of training and thought, yoga was not for men. Men didn't do yoga. Men went in the gym, knocked it out in the gym, did your squats, did your push-ups, did your supersets, did everything heavy. You went and ate milkshakes, you put on size, you got down on size. And, Dallas, you were one of those guys like I was, like you had to go through a body transformation where you had to be, okay, here's my body. The business is changing. We have to be pretty now. And you have to cut up and be different. How hard was that for you to do during your prime, and I'm talking now people, we're talking about at prime at over 40, because I did the same thing myself. It's not easy to do. Dallas, with you being on top and having to cut up and be lean like that and have the look, how hard was it for you to transform yourself in mind, not as much as body?
No, it was 100%. You know, like I always say, as important as the workout is, as important, I don't care what the workout is, as important as the workout is, and as important as the eating plan, forget diet, because the first three letters of the word diet is die. Diets don't work. Eating lifestyles eat, changing a lifestyle. Now, it's your diet, meaning what you eat, is a whole different animal. So the workout and the diet per se of what you eat is 10% of the equation. The 90% is right in between this 6-inch piece of real estate in between your ears. That's everything. So changing my mindset to I've always been reinventing myself, whether it's in the ring or outside of the ring. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. And that would
be eccentric.
No,
it's the truth. No, it's the truth.
No, it's whatever label people want to put on it. It's being able to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I need to do that. For me, when I was 12 years old, I walked out in front of a car. It hit my right knee, my face bounced off the hood, and I flew 42 feet from the point of impact. And I was like, I wouldn't say I was a prodigy, but I was for 12 years old, I was starting both ways since I was 10 years old in Pop Warner football. I was going to be playing defensive end for the Giants or the Jets. That's where my mind was at. Like, it was no doubt that that's what was going to happen. And I loved playing hockey back then too. When I got hit by that car, that doctor told me I could never play contact sports again. I went to see the Jets doctor, Dr. Nicholas. He worked on Namath and Reed. He did both of their knee operations. You know what he told me, Vito? He told me, you're never going to be a Willis Reed. You're never going to be a Joe Namath. You need to start hitting the books and, change your whole mindset and start paying attention to your studies, because your football and hockey careers are over. And I cried like a baby, man. And they would let me still play basketball and baseball. And baseball and basketball, I sucked. But baseball, you have to have someone to play with. Basketball, you can play by yourself. And that's where my whole work ethic thing came from, because as a basketball player in 7th grade, I didn't make the team, and I didn't care because I hated it anyway. 8th grade, that was the only sport I could play. And I sat on the bench that year. And I never sat on the bench. And it taught me a really huge lesson. Over that summer, I played 5 hours plus a day, every day, down at the park by myself, 3-on-3, full court. I played all day, every day. And every day I got a little better and a little better. And it taught me that work ethic equals results. Inside my Hall of Fame ring, it says, work ethic equals dreams, ! DDP. So that was the beginning of me completely. And I never really realized it. I heard my wife telling someone that story this morning, how I've constantly been reinventing myself. And I never even thought about that. And she had brought that up because of being a 12-year-old kid and shifting. It was just something I did because I couldn't do that anymore. So I could sit here and cry about it and, and be upset about it and blame everybody. And, hey, I walked out in front of the car. No one pushed me, Now,
I'm going to let Noel talk to you, because I know she has a couple questions for you. And I know you've been very instrumental in her recovery from a stroke. So go ahead. You have the floor. You've been waiting for this for a long time.
And let me
go
get up
ahead.
here. All right. I'm ready. So I love your inspirational messages on the app on Monday.
Thank you.
Love them. They get me going during the week, even if I can't, because I have a lot of like things going on. There's sometimes if I get shots, I can't do certain things. We're hitting rehab hard right now. We just started back. We are about to do a full cleanse at the suggestion of some doctors to do a
great idea.
Yes, so we're going to start doing the cleanse. It's already in the process of starting. You told me to watch a movie about food and different things. Now, what was the name of that documentary that you had me watch?
The first one I have everyone watch is Food Inc. It actually won the Oscar in 2007, and it really shows what the FDA, the government, have let them do to our food. And it's so wrong on so many levels. And it starts to get you ready for another documentary that's called Genetic Roulette. And that shows you what they did to the wheat, like the bread that 99.9% of the people eat. I don't eat it. I eat a different kind of bread. I eat bread that that they make from rice flour that tastes just as good when it's toasted. Doesn't taste as good as that stuff when it's baked up fresh. But bottom line is, I want to eat real food. And what they've done to the wheat, meaning genetically change the wheat, the corn, the soy. They've changed the food. Like the corn is so bad on a level that the genetic DNA of corn, if you take part of that, which is a pesticide that they have put into the corn, in a kernel of corn with the EPA, that kernel of corn that 99.9% of the people in America eat is registered as a pesticide. Why do we have so much cancer? Why do we have so much heart disease and all the other shit that's happening? Put a pesticide in your mouth. Oh, you do it all day long. I don't. I do occasionally because I got to have some vegetables on the road sometimes because I got to have something and it's not organic. But 90% of the time, 90% is going to be organic going in my mouth, whether it's meat or vegetables or fruits. This vegetable right here or this fruit is an apple and it's got a 9 right in the front. That's how you know it's organic. If it's a 7, it's organic and it's from Mexico. If it's a 4, they have sprayed that apple and all those other vegetables with so many chemicals, it would turn your stomach to watch. So that's why I have people watch Food Inc. and Genetic Roulette. Because a lot of the people that I work with are beat up or had a stroke, had some sort of heart disease. If you look in the last 23 years, obesity, cancer, heart disease, diabetes have gone through the roof. Go back to let's see, we're in 2018 right now. Go back to 1978, 1988. But I use 78 as an example. You could do 88, 98 all the way through. Look at a Leonard Skinner concert in 1978, 1988. Everybody's super skinny. Look at one now. Everybody's super big. And carrying so many, from limping around to a cane to a little scooter,
It's bad. A couple months ago, everything you ever said to me all came together a few months ago. Vito backed this up. I said to him, every time I eat anything that's bread, like a breading or anything that's a very like gluten-y or carby something, I'm sick. Every time I eat it, I feel bloated, I feel sick. then he says we get carrots. We keep tons of vegetables in the house because we're not big snack people. We always have vegetables. Even our dog eats vegetables.
Mine too.
Yeah, he loves vegetables. So he says only get the organic carrots because look, we bring the regular carrots home, and within a few days, the regular carrots were disgusting. They were slimy. It was like they weren't right. The organic carrots were fine. There's nothing wrong with them. So now we buy just the organic carrots. So everything you said to me from the last, whenever it was I got sick till now, was like, it just clicked. The whole food roulette, everything, it all clicked together. And I went, this makes sense. And then within the last few weeks, we started making the plan for the cleanse, the rehab, and everything came together. So if anybody's listening to us right now, that's the way to go. Watch that food roulette. Like, you need
genetic roulette, Food Inc. and genetic roulette.
Genetic roulette.
And let me tell you why you have a problem every time when you eat some sort of bread or any kind of wheat. It comes down to what it's wheat. What God created, you can find it. But if you took 1 to 10 of how many wheat products are out there, 0.45 of 1 to 10 would be real wheat. You can't even find it anymore. You can find organic wheat here and there, but it really doesn't pretty much exist because the mass of wheat that they genetically changed. Wheat used to be 5-6 feet tall. Now it's 18 inches. Off the ground, meaning how it grows, but it yields 3 times the mass. And the bottom line is, my point was, when your stomach gets, it's because you've now over time, because of the bad food that they've let come through that you thought was good food, it's made your gut, meaning your stomach, a leaky gut. Now, if you're a celiac and you eat any kind of wheat, you'll get violently ill. So it's kind of almost like a food poisoning to a certain degree. And, you know, your stomach, like so many people have no idea. I do because I'm in this world. And what you eat affects your organs, which affects your muscles and your hip and your back and your knees. Like today, man, I love, spaghetti sauce and eggplant and peppers and tomatoes. I only eat tomato sauce when I really, really want it, because whenever I eat any of those nightshades, that's what they're called, it affects my knees so badly. Like, my knees are killing me. It attacks my joints. And I know because I've done these allergy tests. But it didn't bother me the first 58 years. Now it's 62. Last 2 years, it's become a problem. So as you get older, your body doesn't have the same resiliency it had. You know, like when I was 20, when I was in my 30s, I could still drink. In my 20s, I could drink every day. Then I went to 5 days a week. Then I went to 4. Then I went to 3. Now, if I drink 2 days in a week, it's a lot. Always one day a week, I'm gonna have some, have some wine or some tequila or some gluten-free beer. There's a amazing gluten-free beer called Duradam. It's from Spain, and it's amazing. Like, you're starting to see gluten-free stuff pop up everywhere. Everybody thought it was a fad in the beginning. It's not. They've ruined the food so bad that it's going to become like the go-to. And now you're starting to see organic everything, like from organic potato chips that, it's everywhere. So
what is your like go-to drink that would, alcohol never
cocktail?
Super. Yeah, I think, but what's your like go-to cocktail beverage?
Every time. The healthiest cocktail that tastes the best to me is Patron Don Julio, a high-end tequila with fresh squeezed grapefruit.
Oh, I love grapefruit. We have
a little bit of lime. Yeah, a little bit of
grapefruit vodka that that him and I drink here that is really good. It's called Ruby Red. They sell tons of it in Orlando. I don't know if they sell it everywhere else, but it's the only thing that I can really drink in that kind of, alcohol setting that doesn't bother me. I don't feel bad, but it's gluten-free. It's very fresh.
That's the thing. But one thing you have to look at as time goes on, because of the corn is in everything and the pesticide that's in that corn, like Tito's vodka is great for gluten-free, but it's all made of corn. So to me, the corn is as bad as the gluten at this point for me. So I don't even play with it. I want something that's corn-free unless it's organic. If it's organic corn, I'm going to eat the hell out of it, and it tastes ridiculously better. Like Costco's has a lot of amazing deals. They've got like here in Atlanta, GA, where I live, Costco's has, the guy who owns Costco's must be a celiac or someone in his family is, which means they are the biggest suppliers of organic anything. Big bags of string beans, big bags of fruit, big bags of blueberries for like $10. Where you get that same one that's not frozen, and it's going to cost you an arm and a leg at Whole Foods. But if you get it stuff over at Costco, they have so many, right in the chips and stuff, like from corn chips to whatever, wheat, gluten-free, pretzels and stuff that are, there are choices today. That's my point. And you can eat healthy on a lower, without having to spend too much today. And to me, it's not worth putting anything in my body that's not healthy if I'm going to feel it later. It's not worth it. That moment of like, chomp, chomp, it's gone. Now I feel like shit. No. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
That way.
All right, I got a question for you. Good question. We're going to turn to wrestling now, Dallas, okay? Now, being that both of us wrestled at the same time in the same era, I would like your opinion on work rate from back when we were doing. Now, I watched you and you watched me, right? And at the time you were on top and I was in the middle. And the work rate that was going on back then compared to the work rate that goes on now, what do you see as a big difference in work rate?
Well, I was just on the boat, and Chris Jericho, his cruise was unbelievable. The wrestling that they had on these kids from ROH, Cody Rhodes was there, the Bullet Club, Kenny Omega. If you talk about work rate and when I talk about the best work rate from our era would have been like Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Like that to me would have been the top of the guys who went out there and went 20 minutes and tore it down, and they beat up their bodies a lot. Today, it's much faster. So they're doing way more because there's no real selling point. They sell at points, but it's kind of double sells. It's amazing to me. It's like I can remember when, Bruno would watch what we were doing and think, these guys aren't selling. They're not. It's sped up really fast, way more bumps. And guys like Bruno and that, they didn't look down on it, but they didn't think, it's not real wrestling. Today, I think it's like I used to lay my match out, and I wanted to know from A to Z what I was going to do, and I wanted my guy to know what I wanted to do. And then I'm going to call out there, and it's going to be preparation and improvisation. Today, everybody's A to Z. They lay everything out, and it makes them work faster. But I think these kids today are way better athletes as far as being able to take the abuse on their body. I'm down at NXT with these kids. Man, I will go. I'm there every every 4 months to train them. DDPY program, and I look at someone like Tommaso, Aleister Black, War Machine, the Undisputed. I mean, these guys, Ricochet, they are doing and just the guys I watch on the boat, from Cody to Hangman Page to Kenny Omega to the Young Bucks. Their work rate as far as putting the work in is off the charts to me. And I would love to see them slow down a little bit, meaning every one of them, not one person, as a mass speaking. I'd like to see them, right on up for the WWE guys who go so fast. I'd like to see them sell a little bit more, even though that it's changing. But I think it's amazing what they're doing. I think that what these kids are doing, it's mind-boggling to me. I think they're great, great athletes.
Don't you think that because they're working, now we're on the same page and we have the same philosophy, because they're great athletes and they're training different and the training methods are different, their bodies are conditioned different, right? Don't you think that it takes away from the sport and the believability when they pop up time and time again and they become, as with in the sport, spot monkeys instead of doing the sell?
Well, you know what? If I wasn't right there with the people, because it really comes down to what are the people buying? Are the people into it? I was at All In. And when I was at All In, it was 4+ hours. The show was 4 hours and there was an hour before the show. So it was 5 straight hours. Those fans were screaming all the way to the end. I watched them on the boat, and there's 2,000 people, 2,400 people there. The boat was sold. The ship, Jericho's Cruise, was sold out. Those fans, they appreciate everything. So to me, it's kind of like a video game. Every video game from back in my generation through your generation on through ages have sped up. And would I like to see things? I'd like to, if I could tweak stuff with them, I would, but it would just be tweaking because the fans are with them big time. Like they are so the fan has changed just like it did for the guy back in, Bruno's day and Superstar Billy Graham, who could sit in a headlock for 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
They couldn't do that in our era.
Now,
you know what I mean? They couldn't do that.
When you say the change, now you being for where you sit on top of the tree, okay? Being a Hall of Famer, being with Dusty, being in that time zone, being on top. Now, when we were on top and we were wrestling together, you had 3 different brands. You had the ECW brand, you had the WCW brand, and you had the WWE brand. Now, you can't say that the fans didn't have a flavor of the month or what they wanted, but they had a variety. Do you think that because there's a limited amount of variety, it has hurt the sport? That's why the game has sped up to what it is?
No, I don't know. And I'll tell you, because of the independent world that I've seen, it's almost like it was back in the 70s and early 80s where there were territories. Because you go to Chicago, those fans are ravenous. Like I say, when in the UK, there's kids who were making good money, not great money, but make a living money, working independently. Now today, I know a lot of them. And the Young Bucks, those kids, man, they changed the way the independent guys, because I've talked to a bunch of them who are making way more money today for going out there because they're drawing like the Young Bucks, man. Those kids, they blow my mind, just the stuff that they can do. Now, could they do what they do on a WWE schedule? where it's 25 days a month. I don't know. But I know that they are super friggin' talented, man. And they are the first guys to get a deal with Hot Topics. They're the first guys that aren't a legend or a WWE guy that got those fungo dolls or whatever they're called. Young Bucks got them. You know, I watch them, and they own those people. I watch, both shows that I've been at live, and I watched them, watched a bunch of stuff over this weekend because Chris Jericho gave me the best room on the ship. That was like I could see everything. I could sit in my room and watch the guys wrestle, and I did. I was blown away. I'm blown away by the athleticism of these guys, and like I say, I would like personally for them to sell a little more and take time in between stuff. But then I watch the fans, and it's like they're with them no matter what. So it all comes down to the fans, man. Like, what are the fans buying? What do they want to see? And this is, it is where it is. And I take things as everything reinvents itself. And wrestling right now is reinventing itself again. They did a match, and it was totally ha-ha. But they did a match where Cody and Bullet Club, they all came out as what they grew up as. They brought the heels out first, and then we were all from TNA, and then they brought out the whole Bullet Club, and they were all dressed like Mario. They were dressed like the different games, like the video games that they grew up with. Oh my God. I was just like, my jaw hit the ground. But at the same time, they made it so entertaining. It was total ha-ha shit. It wasn't a wrestling match, but it was. But it wasn't. And the people had a blast. There's only one night you could do that, which was the Halloween night, where you could get away with that. But, man, again, those people who were on that Jericho Cruise, people were telling me the best week of their life. Like, they loved it.
Now, with you saying this, I'm going to make a good point, and this is something that everybody debates, okay? The WWE is the premier company and the only game in town. Kudos to them because they kept it afloat for so many years, and you got to give the man his due. Now, can a company or a group of guys like All In form a company and be competitive with the new mindset and the ideas and creativity? Could that company be competition for the WWE?
I personally don't. They're not trying to do that. You know what I mean? They're not. But they're. Yeah, but again, let's take ROH, because ROH is a company, and they were there, and I've seen their guys, and they got a lot of great talent. I mean, a lot of great talent. I mean, Adam Cole was a top guy there before he came over there. Tommaso, top guy there before he came over. So it's sort of like what WCW was at WWE a long time ago. Hunter, who's the booker there, what those guys are doing, they're not trying to be like WWE. They're giving the fans something different, and the fans who love it. And then the other people who love WWE, and you got to, people can say what they want about the programming and stuff for WWE. I look at, okay, the boys are still making good money. Not maybe making the ridiculous money, but some of them are
making a living.
But I look at how Vince just sold the programming for $1.2 billion with a B, billion, not the company. He didn't sell the company, because if he sold the programming for $1.2 billion for Friday nights for SmackDown, that's going to start in October. I think it's like an 8-year deal. If he sold the programming for one show for $1.2 billion, The company must be worth about 10 billion. You know, so even though he went and that company went for more of a G-rated programming, even though our ratings blew them away, we couldn't command the dollar, anywhere near the dollar that the WWE today does versus the WWF from the Attitude Era. They're not doing anywhere near the ratings Attitude Era Nitro was doing, but they're commanding way more dollars. And they're a corporation, so they're all about making money. You know, so whatever they're doing, you know, and I've always looked at it, you know, from the viewpoint of everything goes through another transformation, another reinvention. And that's what, you know, that's what I think wrestling as a whole is doing. And you know, being around these young kids, I mean, I've hung out with, you know, so many of them. And, you know, I've known Cody since he's been 10 years old. So he's like my nephew to me. He's like family to me, big time. But, you know, being around there in the mix of them, these kids are super cool. You know, they love the business. They love what we did. They watch all the stuff we did. You know, they're creating now today something different. And, you know, and they mix exactly like with what they're doing at ROH and, you know, sort of like what they do at Impact over there. But the talent, they're all like-minded. Even with the guys in WWE, anybody who goes from there to the main company, which is the show, the WWE, they all going to mix right in, you know. And I'm sure, like, for Cody to walk away, when he was probably making $500,000 a year, for him to walk away to follow a dream of being a top guy, he made more money last year than he ever made, ever. And he's out there working his ass off, but the fans can see it. And they knew that he just had to prove it, and he did. So I think all these kids, because, you know, they got an open card to go to WWE, but they didn't, which is pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'm going to let my wife finish up the last segment of the show. I want you to ask Dallas whatever you want wrestling-wise and be creative, and you're going to close the show.
Well, I felt the fans out a little bit because they knew Dallas was going to come on with this. And the top question I get, which happens to be a question of mine, because I was a huge WCW fan, huge, big time. So I watched you guys. I was young, but I watched you guys. I had to get the shot at you. So the main question people ask me all the time when they hear that Dallas is going to come on is Randy Savage. What was it like to work with Randy Savage?
That was amazing. And it was what really, like, Kevin and Scott, they're the ones who gave me the big break of letting me drop them, because that was my idea. But Kevin pitched it to Eric Bischoff. And that really put me on that rocket in New Orleans at the Superdome. It was our first dome show. There was like 33,000 people there. When I friggin' dropped Scott Hall, the roof blew off. And Randy had been talking to me for years and giving me little advice here and there. And when that angle came up to work with him, obviously he's the one who requested it, because I couldn't say, hey, can I work with Randy? You know, Randy picked who he was going to work with. And I'll tell you one story, because I had to take my wife to dinner, but I'll leave you with this story. I was told I was never going to be a top guy. I mean, to my face. Actually, Arn was one of the people who said it to me, and he didn't say it in a mean way, even though there was a little bit of tension between us that night. He wasn't saying you're never going to be a top guy. He was basically telling me I was never going to be a top guy in this meeting I had with the booking committee, because Hogan, Flair, Sting, Luger, or Savage will ever put you over, because you're not perceived as a top guy. And man, as much tension there was with me and him at that moment, it's still like blew, you know, it took me down. And What do you say to that? Especially when Arn says, I put you over, but he goes, everybody's beating me. He goes, they're never going to put me over either. So he's sort of like, it was disheartening, and I almost left. And went to WWF at the time. But I wasn't going to let anybody in any way tell me who I was going to be or what I was going to do. And I always felt like, go back to that kid who played basketball, I'm going to outwork everybody. And I'm going to prove them wrong. And not even so much to prove them wrong as it is to prove me right. And so we do the angle. We have these interviews. It's leading up to the pay-per-view. We're the hottest thing in professional wrestling. From obscurity 6 months before, we are red hot. We have done house show after house show. Here's how every match ended. Either me ending up in a pile of NWO guys kicking my ass, or me slipping out and hitting a couple guys with diamond cutters. I took off through the crowd, but never, ever, ever getting to Randy. And then we're in Florence, South Carolina. And we're both in a dress room. We're putting on our boots. And Arn is the agent. And Arn comes in and he says, so much, what do you want to do tonight? And I remember him tying his boots. And he looks up and he goes, I think I want to take the diamond cutter. And he went back to lacing up his boots. And Arn just looked at me. And he went, well, Diamond, I hope you realize what this could do for your career. And I just went, yeah, Arn, I do. Thanks. And I went back to lacing up my boots. And we went out there in that match. And Simon shined me a little bit. Then he took me down. Then he'd have me fight back. He'd take me down. He'd fight back and take me down. He beat the hell out of me that match. And then finally come back, and I start firing my comeback. He stops me, goes to slam me, and says, diamond cutter. And I turn it from a slam into a diamond cutter, and the roof blew off. And now I'm laying there. He's laying there. And I just took my arm and draped it over him. And it was the loudest 1, 2, 3 I'd ever heard. And like a moment of silence, and then the place went crazy. Like they couldn't believe it. And now we're laying there. I'm flat on my face with my arm over Randy. Randy's laying on his back, not moving a muscle, staring up at the ceiling. And it was so loud. They were going so crazy. It was like I won the world championship. It was like God took a cone of silence from Get Smart and put it over top of us. Because as loud as it was, I could hear him say, well, I guess we know what we're doing at Spring Stampede. And I thought, is he ribbing me? He was testing the waters. And he saw it worked. And it was his decision to do it at the pay-per-view, and it changed my life. And again, work ethic equals dreams. That's what Randy loved the most about me. And like him, like Randy was the first to have his entire match laid out. First guy. I was the second. No one ever busted his balls about that. Everybody busted my balls. Today, everyone does it. And why wouldn't you want to know what the fuck you're doing out there? Now, we can change it at any time. But don't you want a roadmap? Don't you want an outline? Like if I'm acting, give me the lines. I'll make them my own. And that's, to me, what makes the best performer. And I think that you'll see And you'd mentioned like the guys who go so fast today. The guys who do slow it down just that enough that it's not too slow. So, and if it does slow down, way down, oh, wait a minute, maybe that guy's really hurt. So, because these guys are indestructible today, but their shelf lives may be shorter than it would have been because you have only so many bumps in your body. That's where I come in. A lot of the guys, no one did my program, DDP Yoga, while I was doing it. Chris Jericho blew his back out almost exactly like I did. I sent him the disabled veteran video that I helped walk again. 5 minutes later, he called me back. He said, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. 5 weeks later, he was 85% free. 3 months later, he headlined Mania against CM Punk. He'll be 48 this month. He's still bouncing around. And if you saw him bouncing around and then saw him sing, when he's singing, he's jumping all over the place. He's doing everything but falling on his back. And he drinks like a rock star on top of that. So I don't know how I know I'm helping him. And it's one of the reasons I was one of the first guys that he called. And he said, hey, I know it's not your normal quote, but we're just trying to get this off the ground. Will you do this for me? I'd have done it for him for nothing because he has gotten me so much credibility with so many people that Chris Jericho was the guy who told me about AJ, Goldust, Drew McIntyre, so many guys. It was Chris saying, you got to do DDP's workout. It's for real. And it'll help you. He tells all the young guys. Cody told me they had a match, him and Jericho and the Young Bucks against Cody and, oh my God, I'm blanking out here. Kenny Omega. God, I can't remember who else there. I'm super tired. I just got this cruise. God, who was it? Marty? I think it was Marty. Pretty sure it was Marty. Yeah, it was Marty. And Cody told me before the match, Jericho was telling all the guys, you need to be doing DDP Yoga. You need to be doing this program. He goes, it's why I can do what I can do tonight. So, a lot of these young guys, Matt, Young Buck, Matt Jackson, he does my program. His wife, called me up and I sent it over to him. And it's funny, he did a little, he was doing it on the road in one of his elite shows that they do. And he was starting out in the beginning. And at some point in the beginning, I go, okay, today we're going to be doing the diamond cutter workout. And I don't do real diamond cutters anymore. And he looks up and he goes, wait a minute, you just did it all the way. And anyway, it was just something you had to catch. Just those guys being funny, man. They're all funny. They enjoy. This is the thing that I've noticed about wrestling. I'll leave on this note because I got to go. These kids today, they really love it. Like, I love the business. You love the business, Vito. But these kids, there's no stress and pressure shit like what we went through. It's just different. They're having fun. At least the guys that I see that I'm around, in the back door, I can see everything. They really love what they're doing. And I think that's why the fans are reacting the way they do, because they're having fun right with them. And they really include these fans. They're the third man in the ring. So on that, are you feeling good now, girl? Your body feel?
I'm working on it. I'm still working on it, but I never stop.
That's all that matters. Keep working at it. Vito, I love you.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Hey, I love you guys. Have an awesome day. and do your DDPY or else.
We got to do it all together.
Bang!